Today for your valuable testimony here today. The Inflation Reduction Act, I think, is a great example for us here in Congress of why regular order is so important. Backroom deals, legislative texts thrown together at the last minute, and a lack of proper discussion and deliberation leads to all sorts of unintended consequences. Even Senator Manchin has seen the effects of this kind of legislating as he got more of what he wanted out of it than anyone. One particular area of concern that I have and want to highlight, as some of my colleagues have already touched on, is the lack of safeguards that were put in place to prevent these tax incentives from being enjoyed by our adversaries. Well, what do I mean by that? In addition to serving on the Ways and Means Committee, I also serve on the Intelligence Committee and the newly formed Select Committee on China, which is a bipartisan committee that we're addressing the malign activities of the CCP. As a part of that work on Intel and the Select Committee on China, we learn every day about the growing threats from China. And the Inflation Reduction Act demonstrates how easy it is for us to literally let them in through the front door. Before I get to my questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record this Fox News article dated February 20th, 2023, entitled, "CCP-backed tech companies are poised to cash in on Biden's climate bill. National security experts warn," unquote.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Horn, you were actually quoted in this article, so I'll begin with you as I direct my questions. Can you talk about the China 2025 initiative and how aspects of the IRA play right into CCP's efforts to gain advantage over the United States as it relates to our allies?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. I think before I answer, just briefly, I want to state a couple of things that I think everyone in this country hopefully can agree upon, which is that the Chinese Communist Party and the Russian Federation engage in practices that are not only bad, in my opinion, for their own people, but are dangerous to partner with, certainly for the United States or any of our allies. And so when we look at what the CCP is doing, I think that it should serve as a threat to all of our interests everywhere. They have been relatively overt in terms of what their plans are for expansion and suppression of U.S. and other potential competitive interests around the globe and as they expand. What they have also telegraphed that we have failed to properly acknowledge and react to is that they're planning to use our own actions against us. They're planning to use our government funding, our universities, our infrastructure, anything that's exploitable against us in any means possible. So when we look at aspirations of technological development, I don't think there's anyone out there that would disagree that we want to see technological development, economic growth, commercial development, and economic activity, but we have to be careful as we look at driving catalysts to drive U.S. industry and U.S. innovation that we don't open ourselves to a Trojan horse to come in and work against us, because the CCP is an expert at doing this. They know exactly how to exploit what we do. They've been doing it for decades, and their plan is to suppress us and prevent us from being a competitor to their world domination. I say again, their world domination is their goal. And if we look at how they're exploiting and mistreating their own people, they wish to do that to the entire world, and if we allow loopholes without the proper oversight and enforcement, we enable them to do so.
Thank you for that, Mr. Horn. I think one of my frustrations with the IRA has the federal government putting their thumbs on the scale as it relates to certain industries and subsidizing those. Just to follow up on that, can you share on how these types of incentives that are made part of the IRA actually prevent U.S. alternatives and competing companies from growing and thriving domestically?
I'll give an example to try and put it into context. So in the rare earth industry, there are, unbeknownst to a lot of people, several U.S. alternatives that are actually not as far from coming online as people would realize. However, they stand a threat to the global hegemony and monopoly that the Chinese Communist Party has on the industry. And they will do everything possible to prevent those options from coming online, from price fluctuation, flooding the market, everything measurable. So when the resources that are designed to go to U.S. companies to allow them to compete on a fair stage with the Chinese Communist Party are diverted. It allows the Chinese Communist Party not only to take those funds, but to suppress any possible legitimate competition for a better service provided.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.